A very warm welcome to all of you. And this is our third Inform and Inspire webinar. And today we shall be talking about the baby's voice in maternity care. My name is Susan Pawlby. I'm a developmental psychologist. And more than that, I'm the chair of the Trustees of the Brazelton Centre UK. And I'm delighted to be here this morning to share this webinar with you. Today, we're going to hear how the NBO, the Newborn Behavioural Observation, has been introduced into maternity care and is relevant to all practitioners who work within the maternity services. But I am delighted to be able to introduce our 4 speakers today, who are 3 midwives and a lactation consultant. I'll introduce them individually before each of their talks. The NBO is used in maternity care throughout the world, and I'm delighted that there are people from around the world who are attending this webinar. The NBO can in fact be used by any professional working with newborn babies. Not just in the maternity services. And if you are a member, a different profession from a different profession, you can look at our previous webinars, which are on the YouTube channel, where other professionals have shared their experience, such as neonatal therapists, health visitors, and perinatal mental health practitioners. So before I introduce our first speaker, I would like to remind you all that there'll be a prize draw at the end of the webinar for 3 bespoke NBO taster sessions for maternity units in the UK, where we will come to your maternity unit or host the session online, dependent on your location. If you would like to have the chance to win this, could you please send an email during this talk or these talks? I think she's shared her, she's shared her email in the chat box. And if you can do that before 12:30 with your name and your maternity unit, and then we'll announce the winners before the end of the webinar. So now let us move on to our talks today, and I will introduce our first speaker, who is Paula Rooney, and she's a community midwife in the Manchester Foundation Trust. So welcome, Paula. And she will be talking about weaving the baby's voice through pregnancy, birth, and beyond, a midwife's reflections. Paula is a registered midwife, currently working at the Manchester Foundation Trust. Her past roles have included infant feeding lead, health visitor, and Home Start parent-infant mental health coordinator with Trafford, Salford, and Wigan. Paula has been working with families for over 32 years. She's a passion for perinatal infant maternal or parental emotional well-being. And she trained in the NBO in 2020 and has been enthusiastically embedding it into every aspect of her work since then. So welcome, Paula, and we look forward to hearing your reflections today. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Can I just check you can hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, lovely. Hi, good morning. So thank you for that introduction, Susan. So as you said, I'm a midwife, currently work in central Manchester. I qualified in 1992. In 1992, when I trained, the infant mental health wasn't really mentioned. We knew that there was something special that went on during the pregnancy and particularly around the birth about bonding, and we knew we had a role to play in supporting mums and parents on that journey of bonding. We knew there was something magical, it was very intangible, and it was hard to put into words. over the years, there's been much progress made in terms of mental health, particularly around maternal mental health, and in more recent years, perinatal mental health, and then now excitingly infant mental health considerations. And I know that Brazelton have been a major driving force for this. As you've said, in 2000, I worked at Home Start, and I was lucky during that occupation to be able to do the ENBO training. And the ENBO has had a massive impact on how I practice now that I've returned back to midwifery. So I'm going to talk through to you today about kind of weaving the ENBO and the Brazelton concept through midwifery day-to-day care provision. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so the title of today's discussion from myself is Weaving the Baby's Voice Through Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond, a Midwife's Reflection. So hopefully I'm just trying to show you how you can make the ENBO work in practice and embed Brazelton into kind of daily midwifery life. So newborn observation, as you've already discussed there, some may be familiar with the concept, some not, but the newborn baby observation, or the ENBO as we call it, is a relationship-based, structured neurobehavioural observation technique designed to help the practitioner and the parents together to observe the baby and observe the uniqueness of their baby's behaviour. We know that the newborn's method of communication is through their behaviour, so it's really important to take time to observe and understand signs that babies are showing us, their movements, their responses, what this means, and how we are trying to understand what the baby is saying. We want to know who they are, what they like, and what they dislike. We can, through the ENBO, identify, sorry, I've gone back there a little bit. We can identify through the ENBO what kind of support the baby needs. And we can describe and interpret this behaviour with the parents and for the parents. So the ENBO is a tool to help us verbalise what is going on for the baby, which is really important. So with the ENBO, you may have an awareness or you may not, but just as a recap, it can be done from birth and up to 3 months of age. Each session is individualised because the midwife and parent will be guided by the baby. Each baby is unique, so we have to be adaptable during the ENBO assessment. But the ENBO is a tool that will aid parental mentalisation of the baby, be able to see the baby emotionally and mentally. And what we're looking at during the ENBO in a very simplistic format is the autonomic and physiological responses that baby gives us to let us know how they're feeling. That might be a colour change, the motor skills, what the baby's got in terms of tone and sucking abilities, the organisations of states, what kind of state is the baby in and when is it best to engage with the baby. And we're looking at how baby responds to its environment, be that a stimuli that we use during the ENBO or the response to a parental face or voice. So why do we do the ENBOs? We do them because it's been found they have many positive effects for the parents. They feel that they know their baby better after an ENBO. They feel that it's increased the sensitivity that they've got to their baby. They can look at the baby more as an individual and they can see their uniqueness. They can recognise the baby's capabilities a little bit more, but also see the baby's vulnerabilities, but learn how to cope with them and manage them and learn how to help their baby self-regulate, which is really important. The ENBO can, for a parent, enhance the engagement that they do. They feel like after the ENBO that the relationship is strengthened because we give them confidence to believe in their interactions that they're doing with the baby and in reading the baby. And it does promote a positive relationship between the family and the clinician, which is really important as well. What has the ENBO done for me as a midwife? Well, the ENBO training gave me the knowledge and the tools and the confidence to look at the baby more holistically, So rather than just a bit assessing the baby physically, it allows me to assess the baby emotionally too, which I don't think I really did before. It enhances the relationship for both parent and infant, and this can make a long-term impact for parent and child. As we know, the first relationship is one of the most important ones in life because it builds the foundations for the rest of the relationships that we make throughout our lives. The EMBO has given me an opportunity to have a greater impact on influencing parental confidence and help them with coping strategies, which is really important, particularly when we're working in an era of reduced number of visits that parents can get. It's given me a better way of interacting with unborns during my antenatal assessments, and also with interacting with infants when I see them postnatally. It's made me feel more fulfilled in my midwifery role, and I really enjoy the deeper emotional connection that I get with the parent and the infant. I've always been passionate about in parent-infant relationships, but it's just enhanced this to another level. So how do I try and embed it into my work when we're looking at the voice of the baby? And I know as a midwife, when we're asking midwives to do more training and add something else into their daily workload, it can feel very overwhelming. So I want to reassure you that it is just little bits of things that you can do just to change how you work that will have a massive impact on your families. So if I start at the 16-week check, obviously the lady will have a booking appointment and we'll discuss lots of things there. But at the 16-week check, we know that developmentally between 16 to 20 weeks, the baby's auditory centres are starting to work and the baby can start to hear and become aware of what is happening outside of the womb too. So at the 16-week, what I do is introduce one of the tools that Brazelton gives us, which is the Bonding with Your Baby leaflet. So I have this in my clinic, and I obviously talk to the parents about the baby's development at this stage in the womb and the fact that they're able to hear and start listening at this stage. And I will discuss this with them, but then I may give them a laminated copy of this for them to have a read through, perhaps where I test their urine or do something that doesn't need me to verbalise with them. A lot of parents want to take a picture of this, which is great, and it's got lots of great ideas as what they can do to start engaging with the baby. So for some baby, this infant mental health concept can be very new, it can be very overwhelming. So this is just a gentle introduction of different things you can do to your baby and how even these simplistic things will have a massive impact on how your baby is feeling within the womb, and it will help you get to know your baby. And this is available online through the Brazelton website. Ongoing antenatal checks. Obviously, I can reuse the laminated sheet that I used at the previous appointment at 16 weeks. But during ongoing checks, I now want to introduce them to start thinking a little bit more about the baby in terms of what is the baby thinking in the womb, what is the baby feeling, and how may they give the baby a voice. So one of the things that I use, and I have it again laminated, but I also have it attached to the wall next to where the lady attends for her abdominal examination. And this is what it says. So we're going to start thinking more about the baby. So I just introduced the concept that, I think I mentioned previously about your baby hearing in the womb, but do you know that your baby has thoughts and feelings in there as well? And I could say, wonder every day whether you could just have a little stop and think, what is my baby thinking today? What is my baby feeling? And try and give the baby a voice, try and have the baby speaking back to you. And sometimes I give examples that, oh, mummy, you've been very busy today. If you've had a really busy day, are we going to have a relaxed day tomorrow because you've been very, very busy today? So I try and make it fun and lighthearted and not too heavy. And what I want to do, what my intention to do is to encourage wondering and guessing. And we know that this will help with reflective functioning, which is a key parenting skill, and it will build up lots of essential parenting skills as well. So at each antenatal appointment that is here next to the bed, and like I say, I have a laminated copy, and I just gently try and check in. How are you doing with thinking about the baby in there and thinking about the baby having its own thoughts and feelings? And if anybody's struggling with that, I'll make sure that I try and do a little bit more direct work with them to try and assist them to get that. So for some people, it can feel overwhelming. I'm very aware of that, but I'll pick up on the cues if anybody is struggling, and I'll help them with that in a slightly separate appointment. I have lots of affirmations up in the room. I try and pick out affirmations that are not a new thing. Are they related to pregnancy and labour? But I want them kind of more pregnancy specific. I want them a little bit more baby specific. So again, they can look that this journey, they're on it together with somebody else. They're not just on it on their own. So the affirmations are up on the wall during the clinic appointments as well. Moving on to the 36-week appointment, preparing for labour and delivery. As midwives, we have a standard protocol that we need to work through on this appointment about pain relief and positions, and the family practically ready at home for their baby. But as well as being practically ready, I want my families to be emotionally ready. So there's a few concepts that I introduce at 36 weeks in preparation for them meeting the baby. So one of the questions I ask is, how do you think your baby will feel when you're in labour? And sometimes we have a little joke in the antenatal appointment, is that it's not all about you, it's about there's somebody else going through this process as well. So how does your baby, do you think your baby's going to feel in labour? What do you think that the baby will be thinking about when you're in labour or at that point of delivery? And can you imagine what that feeling is like? I encourage my ladies to talk to their babies in labour. I advise that this will give strength and courage to both mother and baby to face the massive changes that lie ahead. So I strongly say, reassure your baby, in between a contraction, that everything's okay and that you're a bit nearer to come and meet mum and dad or partner as appropriate. I then encourage them to look at the 4th trimester and try and see how there is going to be massive changes for baby and how they can support this transition for the baby as well as themselves. I introduce baby states to them if they've not heard about them before, and ask them to do some homework on that. And we look at crying, and we talk about icon, and we look at soothing and settling techniques, which is something that we don't always put a lot of focus on until the baby's actually here. But I would like my parents to be prepared in advance and consider all this before the baby arrives. The 4th trimester, as I've mentioned, you're probably familiar with about the massive changes that goes on for the baby from the womb to the outside world. And I think bringing this alive before the baby arrives can just get the mum and the parents just to have some consideration that, wow, this is massive, this change, and how would I feel if this was me going from this to this? And hopefully it supports them to support their baby in the massive transition. Skin to skin, obviously we promoted skin to skin for a very long time now, but as well as the physiological benefits for that, I do talk to my parents about the emotional benefits. And again, just trying to give the baby a voice, that when he or she is placed onto your chest or placed in your arms for the first time, that they're going to be nervous, they're going to be a little bit scared, they don't know where they are, and that the importance of the heartbeat and the voice, which will reassure a baby when it's feeling like that. I kind of reinforce that babies are ready to be social immediately from birth, and that use that skin to skin time to let the baby see your face, hear your voice, and just reinforce that, they are learning the world through you and the other people that are close around you. So it's really important to support the baby in that. And I just get them to try again, recognise all the massive changes that are going to happen, both for them but for the baby, and to try and see the world through their baby's eyes rather than just their own. Postnatally, the ENBO and the Brazelton has influenced my practice, because the way that I talk and engage with babies has dramatically changed. I try and give the baby a voice while I'm there. I kind of role model ideas for the parents. I do lots of guessing when I'm undressing the baby what he or she is thinking or feeling, and I try and mimic that. What's Paula doing to you today? How is this making you feel? Just again, so the parents can kind of get an idea that this is natural, this is normal, and it will help your baby. If parents are having a tough time, and often it's very important to listen to parents having a tough time, but to acknowledge that sounds really tough what you've been through over the last few days, and I wonder what the baby wanted to tell me. And I may mimic, what do you want to tell Paula about the last few days? Has it been tough for you as well? Still ongoing, encourage the parents to see the world through baby's eyes. Doing the embo can be really reassuring during a postnatal check. There may be times we'll do a full embo, there might be times we'll do part of an embo, but it will just help to explore how far the parents have come getting to know their baby, and it will provide reassurance for them. Postnatal, I discuss brain development, about all the connections that go in with the brain. I have little knitted brains that I use, weighted, and I say, look, you've got to make a massive impact on this little brain and make it grow. I may send postnatal supportive texts or emails with Brazelton quotes and captions, and I'll show you a few of those, just to, again, highlight baby's voice, but also reassure them. This is an example of one of the things that I might text to a mum, a really cute one. And again, it's baby's voice. I have lots of emotions just like you. I'm still learning about how I feel. When you are sensitive and sympathetic to me, by reflecting and talking to me about how I feel, I find this reassuring. Then I begin to understand how different emotions feel. So that is one example. Another example I might send if baby's been really unsettled and mum's upset that baby's been crying, done lots of reassurance, I might do a follow-up text to her, just say, hey, look, you're smashing this out of the park. That when baby's saying, when I'm upset, I find your attention and voice and your touch comfort me, helping me calm down when I'm crying, helps me grow up and be happy and content. So that can just help somebody when they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. During the NIPE, I'll do an embo as a start or an introduction to the NIPE. It feels, for me, midwifery-wise, more gentler. It involves the parents so much more. The parents can give me a version of what they've learned about the baby and observed so far. A lot of the observational skills that we use during an embo examination will fulfill a lot of the NIPE requirements when we're looking at tone and responses and reflexes. So it's not like you're duplicating doing an embo at your NIPE. It's holistic, and it provides opportunities to educate parents. It builds up their confidence and knowledge, and it just supports them more holistically in getting to know their baby. And during the NIPE, again, I would use the voice of the baby saying, I'm sorry, baby, but I just need to extend your leg here, and this is just you're going to feel a little bit of pressure. And I just try and, again, role model and use that during my examinations. After the ENBO, there is a lovely booklet that Brazelton produce, which parents love. It's much more simplistic than giving them a printout of the physical NIPE examination. When we do the ENBO alongside it, you can fill this out in a much more simplistic way, and it acknowledges what the parents have said in terms of what they feel the baby is finding difficult at this time, and kind of what plans we've come up with of how we can support the baby. And again, a copy of this is available online at Brazelton for you to have a look into in more detail. There's Brazelton resources that really helped me as a midwife to help parents and babies. As I've already said, I might text them, I might email them, but I just find that the Brazelton things help parents' confidence and reinforce what I've said, but also reinforce how their hard work is really reassuring their baby and teaching the baby lots of emotional stuff, as well as all the physical care that they're given. Again, these are all available online when you go on to Brazelton, and they're definitely worth having a look into because it will definitely influence your practice. There's one on the sleep states there, which is great because sleep states can get a little bit overwhelming and confusing, which is why it's good to introduce it antenatally. And just to be in the right time of year, there's a lovely one there about my first Christmas and how you can help baby at Christmas with all that sensory overload stuff. That's a lovely one. There's one here that talks about using baby communication to help mothers experiencing mental illness. When I read this leaflet, I think we all have mental health, and I feel the outcomes on this are relevant for all women, regardless of where their mental health is up to. But for them to be able to see the baby as an individual and unique and have their own way of communicating is amazing. If we can see how responsive the baby is to the face and the voice. We know that that interaction can help build a positive relationship. We've said about the sensitivity, and they become more aware of baby's needs. The parent feels more empowered, and the mother just doesn't focus on themselves and their own thoughts and feelings. They realise that baby has their own, and they become to realise how important their role is as a mother or a parent. Again, this is available online for you to access. So when we're looking at the midwife role, so kind of for me, I just want to say that I cannot express how grateful I am to have had the EMBO training, but also that I've been opened up to the world of Brazelton and infant mental health. We know that pregnancy is a time of change, and usually with the research shows that people are willing to modify their behaviour. So I know as a midwife, we have the unique opportunity to educate and support parents to open their minds and their souls to infant mental health and educate them on the role they play in their infant's emotional well-being. We know the first relationship will impact on all others, and I know midwifery can be very task orientated. The EMBO and Brazelton stuff allow me to just sprinkle, I call it glitter, sprinkle a little bit of relationship building stuff throughout my daily work. I feel privileged to be involved in the process of impacting on that first relationship. Like I say, the EMBO and Brazelton have been a massive impact on this, and it's given me the confidence to assist and support parents in their first relationship. And there's a final quote here from Mr. Brazelton himself. I'll let you read that because it makes me burst that I feel that I can have an impact on this. So I'm just trying to see it through the baby's eyes, like baby's kind of bursting that mum and dad are really interested in me. They really want to support me, which is great. Thank you for listening, and sorry if I've overrun.
Thank you so much, Paula, for such an amazing talk. I just wish I'd had you as my midwife, but that would have been 45 years ago. So you may not have been a midwife at that stage.
Not quite. I was thinking about it, possibly.
Thinking about it, but thank you so much. I've just picked up one question, which I think we've got time for.
Yeah.
The question is, do you hold a caseload? And then it says, how can we deliver this vital work when there is no continuity of care and a midwife?
So yeah, I do hold a caseload. I'm part-time, so I share the caseload with another team member. I agree that continuity can be hard. You know, although we have a caseload, it depends on clinic appointments and slots and things. But I think even without continuity, even if I met somebody as a one-off, and very interestingly, I've done it of recent that I've met ladies antenatally. I've covered somebody's clinic and I've used these concepts in my clinic, and they're like, oh wow, I've not heard about this before, you know, wow. And then I've met them postnatally and they're like, thank you so much. You know, that time I met you at the clinic and you discussed that, or you made me think about that. That had like a massive impact on me and hopefully on my baby. So yeah, I fully acknowledge continuity can be really hard. But I think regardless of continuity, you can sprinkle that. I think even if you do this once in somebody's antenatal journey, you will have an impact if you can start that thought process off within a mother or a parent. Even as a one-off, I think it will make a difference. It just makes them think differently and feel differently. which hopefully will last throughout the pregnancy and the newborn journey.
Thank you, Paula. That's really started us off well. So thank you so much for sharing your reflections with us. Thank you. So we move on now to our next speaker, who is Natalie van Rooyen, who I guess we'll see shortly. Thank you. Natalie is a parent education specialist midwife in the Royal Surrey Foundation Trust. And she's going to talk to us about Ready to Meet Baby, an NHS parent education approach. Natalie is a registered midwife of 21 years, and during which time she's worked in all areas of maternity, but mostly within community settings, including 10 years supporting families from early pregnancy, birth, and for 6 weeks after birth as the continuity of carer midwife. Obviously, we've just touched on the fact that not all trusts have continuity of care. But Natalie, we're thrilled that you are able to join us and from the Royal Surrey Hospital as a specialist parent education midwife. And I think you did the ENBO in 2020. I'm not sure about that.
I think it was 2023, possibly.
Oh, okay. Wonderful, wonderful.
Recent.
In addition to being a registered midwife, you have a cognitive, you are a cognitive hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner. I think you'll have to tell us what NLP stands for, because I don't know.
It's a neuro-linguistic practitioner, so it's about clean, neutral language.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And she's a hypnobirthing practitioner, a first aid instructor, and baby massage and baby yoga instructor. So wonderful to meet you, Natalie, and we look forward very much to your presentation. Thank you. Remember to put questions in the question and answer or in the chat box. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Susan. I've got some technical support today, so Sarah's going to do my PowerPoint for me. So excuse me when I ask her to change to the next slide. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about what we do at the Royal Surrey, because I think that's relevant, and then how we can weave in the Brazelton approach. And Paula's talk set me up beautifully, so thank you, Paula. I'm going to continue some of the themes that you discussed. So a little bit about the Trust. We're based in Guildford in Surrey. On our 2 previous Ofsted inspections, we've been rated as outstanding. And we've also had UNICEF Gold accreditation for many years. We've also, last year, were voted by service users as best patient experience, where it was a joint first place. So we're very committed to the service user experience, and we're very committed to a holistic approach. So as a part of that commitment at the Royal Surrey, we're really lucky that we have a dedicated parent education team. Sarah, if you could do the next slide, that would be great. So we are a team. We're led by Kate Conway, who is our matron. And then there's myself and my colleague, Caroline Cousins. We're midwives, and Caroline and I provide the education ourselves. So we offer a wide range of courses and classes, and we have done for over a decade. So on the next slide, Sarah, that will we'll talk through some of the philosophy, and I'll talk you through some of the classes that we provide. So Birth and Beyond was developed over a decade ago by our colleague Claire Barrard, who still works at the Royal Surrey. And what we wanted to do as a trust was to provide parent education that was led by experts, that gave realistic expectations, and that was based on the evidence. In Surrey, we have a really strong motivation from parents to attend classes, and they'll often do these from external providers. And as many of you will know, some of those providers will be fabulous, but many of them are unregulated. They might provide classes based on opinion, or they don't have the training to provide the nuance of some of the complex topics that are covered during pregnancy, labour and birth. So we wanted to give them that opportunity. When we surveyed people booked with us, what they looked for in classes, the main thing that they wanted was they wanted to make friends. So we wanted to produce a programme where they could get that good, reliable education from the trust that was going to be caring for them, because obviously there's very specific things that external providers won't know, so that we could provide a continuity of information at all points. But we also wanted to give them the opportunity to get those softer things that parents are looking for, a support network, social events, those kind of things. So we've combined the two, and we think it works. So all of our classes are designed to support that network. Apparently we are down to earth, friendly and fun, but I'll let you decide if that's the case. The pictures that I'm sharing in the PowerPoint are actually our events. So these are our service users attending our events. So it gives you a bit of a feel for the kind of environment that we create. So on the next slide, I'm going to demonstrate what classes we offer. So we have a tiered approach at the Royal Surrey. We offer free courses which are available to anybody that is booked to have our care. So if they're booking to have midwife care with us, then they have access to these, and you can see those on the list. So we provide a preconception and early pregnancy session, a live virtual tour. We do a birth planning workshop, which is very much focused on kind of assessing where they are and what information do they need. We talk about obvious things like labour, birth, pain relief, postnatal recovery and baby care. We also use our colleagues within the trust. So our physio team provide an antenatal and a postnatal physio class, which is really well received and attended. And our infant feeding lead also provides a breastfeeding workshop. In addition to that, we offer a sleep, baby and you workshop. So this is where people attend during pregnancy to find out about biological norms for baby sleep and what they can do to support and to give them realistic expectations of what life is like with a baby and what to expect from their sleep. And that's done during pregnancy. So they've got time to process and reflect on that. And we also do a monthly wellbeing walk. So myself and my colleague Caroline meet pregnant couples or people that have just had their baby or might have had their baby several months ago. They can come and meet us in a local park. We go for a gentle walk and then we go for a drink together. And anybody that's booked with us can attend that. And we do get people that attend early pregnant and come all the way through and then come back with their babies after, which is really lovely. All of those services are free. And with the exception of the wellbeing walk, they're all done online. In addition to that, they've got the option to pay for some additional classes. And these are competitively priced compared to what is on offer in our community. So the prices range from £30 to £330. The £330 is our complete course, which is a package, and that's 7 months of education that spans across pregnancy and continues into the postnatal period as well. So it sounds a lot, but it's very good value for money. We are not for profit. So what that means is that any profit that we raise from our paid for classes go back into the maternity department, and it's what funds our complementary classes. And that's what's made it possible for to continue such a wide range of services for over a decade, and what makes it possible for us to be able to continue that. So it works really well as an income generating service. In order to deliver that, we needed a platform to be able to arrange bookings, provide information, and to provide those virtual opportunities for learning. So we've developed last year, it's just been launched just over a year now, our parent portal. So this is a portal that's available to them. And if, Sarah, you're happy to share the next slide, I can demonstrate a little bit what it looks like. So within the portal, they have a profile. They can access information about our free and paid for courses. They can book and pay for those there as well. So it's a one-stop shop. But in addition to that, they've got access to frequently asked questions, our maternity guidelines, but they can also access our library. And this is what you're seeing on the screen now. This is an overview of our library. So they're arranged into chapters for different topic areas, and they can click on that and then it will open up a whole range of other information. So you're just seeing the overview, what's available. They do have an ability to change the language. So if you look to the top right of that image, you'll see there's a little word there saying accessibility. If they click on that, they can then translate it into their preferred language. They also have the option to change the text or the font in case there's any visual impairment as well. So it makes it as accessible as we can possibly get it. In the first half of this year, we had over 8,200 logons to the portal. So we know it's being used and accessed, and it makes it really easy for our clients to get information. The idea with the portal is that we are hoping it gives people the opportunity to interact with evidence-based NHS approved information. I'm sure those of you that are working in the field are aware of how much information there is out there now and how very much our service users are going to Instagram and TikTok for medical information, which some of it can be fantastic, some of it not so much. So we wanted to provide them with information that we have vetted, curated and written, and we encourage them to use this before they do a search engine search. So that they know they've got reliable evidence-based information. It does link to external websites, for example, Brazelton, and so they've got that access. That's okay, Sarah, I'm ready. You can go to the next one. So why did we choose to do the Brazelton NBO training? Well, we very much looked at the ethos of Brazelton and felt that it really aligned beautifully. We feel that we've got a shared vision, mission and approach to Brazelton, and this quote on the screen is theirs. So every child deserves the best start in life and every parent deserves to be supported as they transition to parenthood. And that's very much the ethos of the Royal Surrey Hospital, but also of the Birth and Beyond team, really empowering and supporting families to get the information so that they can make decisions, but also have that good quality information to do so. Next slide, please, Sarah. Thanks. We also had to be careful because we work with other agencies and charities, and we wanted to make sure that anything that we introduced aligned really well with them. And Brazelton does align really beautifully with our requirements for UNICEF and our BFI gold rating. It obviously supports the safe sleep guidelines, and it actually works really beautifully with the sleep programme that we provide. That is, we trained with Durham University, and it's their programme that we teach. So all of those things really sit nicely with some synergy and synchronicity, and they don't contradict or conflict each other. So Brazelton was a perfect fit. We go to the next slide. So Caroline and I did the NBO training. We don't use it as one entity, very much like Paula was talking about. We weave it and we layer it into every aspect of our education. So that starts during the antenatal period. It continues once the baby's been born and we're interacting with parents in those postnatal classes. We think, just like Paula mentioned, that pregnancy is the perfect opportunity to present people with new ideas, to reflect and to consider what they think. And it's a really good way of starting those conversations. So we know a lot of our clients come to our classes, our paid for classes, because they want to make friends. That's great. We give them the opportunity to do that. But whilst they're there, we want to drop this bit of information and get them to start reflecting and considering. So I'm going to talk you through specifically what we do. The Brazelton resources that Paula very beautifully demonstrated are available to all of our clients through our maternity parent portal. So if they go to the postnatal recovery and baby care section of the library, they can access that information. We've also included the interactive leaflets that Brazelton provide as well. So they've got access to those on things like baby communication. And it's, as I said, accessible to all. Those that aren't booked at the Royal Surrey can pay to attend our classes, and if they do that, they also get access to the portal, so they'll also have access to this information. So within that chapter, we include information on safe sleep, first aid resources, infant feeding, baby care instruction, like bathing videos, but also a lot of information about that newborn communication as well. Next slide, please. So we are working on enhancing and adding to what we provide through the Brazelton ethos, coming soon. We, in early 2025, will be launching a rainbow parent education package. So this is for bereaved parents that will come attend together with their peers in an emotionally safe environment where we'll provide specific bespoke labour and birth education for them. But they'll also be able to attend a postnatal workshop as well, which will include baby classes and also emotional preparation too. We're also going to be reinstating some workshops to align with our UNICEF requirements. So a lot about bonding, connection, forming those responsive early relationships. And Brazelton will be weaved throughout those as well. We're going to do one based on pregnancy, connection and receptiveness, but also postnatal connection and receptiveness as well. Okay, next slide. So if we focus on our paid for services now, some of the things that are available. So they can book a course called Baby and Me. This is a postnatal course, so they would attend after the baby is born. This is delivered online because it's more accessible to new parents. They can turn up in their pajamas, they can feed their baby, they don't have to have their camera on. And we do a 4-week online course. This is £40. And we talk about a different topic each week, which Brazelton will be weaved throughout that entire course. But specifically on week 4, we cover a session on play and development. So we talk to parents about how babies' brains develop, what they can do to support that, how to recognise their states. So what state is the baby in, and when is a good time to interact, play and stimulate a baby, and when is the opportunity to calm and regulate and to take time out. So it really helps them to start to read their baby cues, to recognise when they should be interacting and when they should be calming. And it starts to get that conversation going. And because it's a live class, they can ask questions. We share videos to babies demonstrating those states, particularly for people that might find it difficult to read communication cues, so that they can study that and kind of observe it and reflect on that as well. We also deliver a baby care workshop. This is a standalone 4-hour workshop where parents come and meet us in person. During this workshop, we cover a lot. So they would attend in pregnancy. We talk about baby care, so practical skills like winding and changing nappies. But throughout that entire workshop, we're thinking about the baby experience. So we're getting them to consider, what is it like for a baby to be in the uterus in pregnancy? How does that differ when they're born and on the outside world? What can we do to support that transition? We talk a lot around the 4th trimester as well, and prepare them for what a baby's behaviour is like. Also to hear that baby voice and to consider it from the baby perspective. We also do a lot of modelling in that class, like role modelling. So they are given a baby doll. They are asked to treat it as if it was real for 4 hours. So they literally hold their babies, rock their babies, stroke their babies. So we're really getting them to practice those parenting skills and to start imagining life with a baby and to consider the baby's perspective as well. A big part of that, on the next slide, Sarah, we talk about a resource that Brazelton provide. So they very kindly agreed to let us share this. We have reimagined it in our own branding, but Brazelton is credited, and we talk to them at those sessions about Brazelton and what they do. So we use the Brazelton Soothability Steps. So this is a framework for which parents can use once a baby has been fed, nappy changed, all of the basics checked, for a fussy baby that they are finding difficult to console. And this gives them a step-by-step approach to try to help settle and respond to their baby. And we actually act this out. So with their babies, we'll talk through it, and we'll get both parents or both attendees to role model this and practice it. So it gives them confidence to feel like they know what to do on that first nightmare night that they might have as new parents, but also giving them the suggestions about how we need to be gentle, responsive, loving, and helping to empower them. Next slide, please. So In pregnancy, we also provide a royal relaxation class, which is a 4-week online course, and this will be part of the Rainbow Care package as well, where we get them to think about connection, bonding with their babies. We give them strategies and relaxation techniques to connect and respond with their babies. And we do this in pregnancy because we want to set the scene. We want them to think of this baby as an individual, to start recognizing that they have their own likes and dislikes, that they're already demonstrating character traits. And that relationship has begun right from the start of that pregnancy. We don't become parents when the baby's born. It's already started. It's a continuation. So we've set that scene in pregnancy and in royal relaxation. And then once they have their babies and come to us at postnatal classes, we've really weaved that in, and we can then just pick up those points in real time when they have their babies as well. And one of our opportunities to do that is at our wellbeing walk, but also at our baby classes. So these are a paid for service. They are £40 for 4 weeks in local community venues, very lovely venues like studios and church halls, but very nice ones, where they can come along. They're unhurried. They have plenty of time to feed and change their baby, to ask us questions. As midwives, it's great because they can ask us questions at any point. But we really love our baby classes because we think it helps parents to understand baby cues. We always, with any class we do with babies, we're talking about those things. We're role modeling them, just like Paula explained, talking to the baby. We get the parents to ask for consent from the babies at the beginning of every class, again, just to make sure that they're recognising those babies as individuals. Those classes help to strengthen the bond or create a bond between the caregiver and the baby. It really boosts parents' confidence, and it creates a routine, but a routine of connection. So encouraging them to take this time out to connect with their baby on a daily basis, and making that part of their day, to do some yoga and play, or to do some massage perhaps at bedtime. And it also helps with relaxation and stress relief for both parent and baby, for that calm connection. But it can also help with things like digestive issues, for example, or baby massage strokes. So again, it gives them, parents, tools to feel confident and that they can respond and support their baby, but also gives the baby things to help with those situations as well. Next slide, Sarah. Thank you. So why do the MBO? We think it's crucial to provide all of the services we do, and we really think it strengthens our commitment to all of the requirements that we have in maternity. So it supports the standards of the BFI for UNICEF. I've put the 3 that I thought were the most relevant on the screen there. And NICE in their antenatal care say that we should be encouraging parents to value the time they spend with their baby as a way of promoting emotional attachment. And that should include face-to-face interaction, skin-to-skin contact, and responding appropriately to baby cues. So that's in the NICE Antenatal Care Guideline of 2021. I'd just like you to hold that in your mind as we prepare to see the next picture. So encourage parents to value and promote that time to respond to their babies. So Sarah, if you could share the next slide with that in mind. This is one of our mums and babies. And I think this picture really demonstrates that happens during our classes. And we see this every single week. Mums and dads and parents connecting with their babies in this beautiful, responsive and joyful way. And it's really rewarding. But it's not just us that think that. As the facilitators, I've included a quote from one of our parents. The class has been midwife-led, meant I could ask baby health and related questions. My baby has thoroughly enjoyed them, and I've loved learning the different techniques, which I can transfer during our playtime at home. And that's the feedback that we get. We get the feedback that parents go away and they continue these things and they make them part of their day. And I don't think they always realise what an amazing, fantastic job they're doing, but they're doing it almost instinctively by this point. And if you could go to the last slide, Sarah. So I'm happy to take questions. There's a couple of quotes from our general course attendees there. If anybody wants to follow us or connect, our details are on the screen. And just to point out that we do provide paid for services, but you can they can be accessed for free by midwife referral. So for people that it would be perhaps where money is an issue, they do have universal access to that by midwife referral as well. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Natalie. That was such a wonderful talk and gave us such inspiration for work in those areas. So thank you. And that's the Royal Surrey and Trust. And we'd like to also congratulate you on your Ofsted outstanding and all the other things that you have gained. So it's obviously a really good set of courses and lots of things for free. And I'm delighted, as in the previous talk, that you begin in pregnancy. I think this is something that the Brazelton Centre have always wanted to really get into that part, because the preparation is so important before the baby is born. So thank you very much. There's one question that perhaps it may be answered in one of the next talks or the next talk. But anyway, I'll read it to you if you don't mind, Natalie. It's from Antonia saying, working in perinatal mental health, we come across women who are struggling to connect with baby during the pregnancy and after for lots of reasons, including past trauma. How do you support, normalize when mums don't feel that connection, and they maybe feel a lot of guilt about that and the potential impact of that, i.e. worrying that they won't bond, won't be a good mother if these things aren't coming naturally?
Yeah, we do consider that. It's a really good question. And we do have that. It does come up frequently and it's very understandable. So whenever we're demonstrating or discussing these themes, we talk about the fact that not everybody experiences that connection in pregnancy, and that's okay. And that might be to keep them emotionally safe. We can refer people to our Royal Relaxation course, so they would come across along to that, where they can explore those themes in more detail. And we do have strategies and techniques for people. For example, we'll talk about finding ways to connect with themselves. So they take time out to be mindfulness and to calm themselves, because we know that's going to calm the baby, even if the focus is on the parent. And we also have relaxation techniques and audios that, as a cognitive hypnotherapist, I can create and give to them. We either do that on a one-to-one bespoke level if needed. It doesn't come up very often. Or they would attend the group, and we give them suggestions of how to connect with whilst keeping that safe. So, for example, one of the techniques is imagining sending love to the baby. And that doesn't have to be the pregnant person's love. That can be love from the community, from their family, their partner. And if they can't do that, they can send my love. That's what I say to them. So we get a way to create an image of that or imagine that and to send that to the baby. So they are still connecting and taking time out, but in a bit more of a distance, dissociated way. And I think just to be really supportive, that it's okay and we're there to support them. And there's lots of other services beyond birth and beyond. We have a dedicated mental health team as well, who are fantastic, that we can refer to and support in faceted, multi-layered ways. So yeah, we're aware of that.
Well, thank you very much. That's really, really helpful. And as you say, Paula's and your talk, Natalie, go hand in hand with each other. So thank you so much. Thank you. So now we move on to Stephanie. So this is Stephanie Kinder. And she is a complex care midwife for the North Bristol Foundation Trust. So welcome, Stephanie. And Stephanie's going to talk about the power of the newborn behavioural observations to support vulnerable families in maternity care. So I think that this will follow on well from the last question that we had. And Stephanie qualified as a midwife in 2016 and has worked in a number of roles in community and midwifery settings. She more recently has worked as a complex care midwife, supporting the care of socially complex and vulnerable families. In 2023, Stephanie, like Natalie, was one of the 8 successful practitioners selected by the Brazelton Centre UK to be part of their baby communication in Maternity project. And as part of this, Stephanie has trained and certified in the ENBO and is now working to promote and champion the approach in her trust, which is the North Bristol Foundation Trust. So welcome, Natalie. We seem to have got Natalie up, but anyway, Stephanie, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Susan. Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to come and talk to you all today. I will just share my screen. There we go. Can you see that now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
There we go. Like I said, thanks so much for inviting me here today, and thank you also to Paula and Natalie for some amazing start to today's webinar. So my name is Steph and I work at Southmead Hospital, which is in North Bristol, and I currently work as a complex care midwife, and that is a specialist role where we're kind of supporting midwives and other professionals within midwifery services with their provision of their care for women who have kind of a socially complex situation, and they're facing a range of adversities and vulnerabilities. We are typically non-clinical. We don't kind of carry a caseload, but we're kind of there to support clinical staff to ensure that families in our care are being supported by all the necessary professionals, and we're kind of liaising with those services such as kind of children's and adult social care, early help providers, police, probation, domestic abuse organisations, that kind of thing. So this morning I'm going to be talking to you about my experiences of promoting the baby's voice in maternity care of vulnerable families using ENBOs. As Susan mentioned, I was really fortunate to be given the opportunity to undertake the training last year, and it's been a really transformative experience actually, and I'm so grateful for it. Paula very beautifully and succinctly described what an ENBO is, so I'll skip over that part of my talk, but I think the kind of really important thing to emphasize about what an ENBO is and kind of what's so amazing about it is it's a real kind of step away from the sort of tick list exercise of those kind of routine clinical assessments that we're doing with babies, perhaps like on the postnatal ward or on a postnatal visit. And within my role as a complex care midwife, I've undertaken a small quality improvement project to implement the use of ENBOs on the postnatal wards for our vulnerable families, and I'll talk a little bit more about that project later. So when I undertook the ENBO training, I kind of found myself repeatedly asking myself kind of, why isn't this in really standard midwifery training and midwifery practice? And so why didn't I kind of know all this stuff already? Which, yeah, was quite interesting. And this kind of slide just really highlights that a lot of the core values of the Brazelton approach are really well within the role of a midwife. So this is just taken from the NMC standard of proficiencies for midwives. So at the point of registration, we are expected to promote and support parent and newborn mental health and well-being, positive attachment, and that transition to parenthood. So kind of up till now, we've been thinking quite generally about ENBOs and midwifery practice and maternity care. So now I just thought we'd have a bit of a closer look at what types of adversity some of the families in our care may be facing. Obviously, this list is not exhaustive, and often families are kind of facing multiple disadvantages. But we're thinking about parents with mental health illness, substance misuse, and domestic violence. And those three are often referred to as kind of the toxic trio. Families' own experiences of being parented and some associated adverse childhood experiences. Families facing social isolation, so kind of recent migrants, for example, excessive stress, economic deprivation, unstable housing, parenting alone or at a very young age, learning disabilities, perhaps some criminality. So a kind of a wide range of vulnerabilities we're thinking about. And the NSPCC estimates that 26% of babies in the UK, sorry, there's the doorbell, 26% of babies in the UK have a parent affected by mental health, illness, domestic abuse, or issues with drugs and alcohol, which is quite shocking, isn't it? Really, a quarter of babies in the UK. And then if we start thinking about the babies in turn, a lot of these vulnerabilities kind of link directly or indirectly to the kind of vulnerabilities being faced by parents. So things like prematurity, low birth weight, perhaps some birth complications, exposure to drugs or medications, and obviously that may or may not result in neonatal abstinence syndrome. So midwifery care and kind of where does that fit in the picture for these vulnerable families and babies? So the 3-year delivery plan, which some of you may have heard of, and that was published in March last year, that kind of really advocates the principle of proportionate universalism in order to improve outcomes for families facing adversity. And this is kind of the principle of offering preventative programmes that are aimed at kind of engaging those at the greatest risk of poor health outcomes. And then with that in mind, we know that babies they develop in the context of their relationships and their early experiences in life. They go on to shape their physical, social, emotional, and mental well-being throughout their whole life. So this kind of principle of the 1001 critical days, it's a really big driver in lots of policies, and maternity services are kind of beautifully well placed in that to kind of offer interventions in that critical window of opportunity for babies, particularly the most vulnerable babies that we care for. We know that at least 15% of children in the general population experience a disordered attachment, which is considered kind of the most concerning type of attachment. And we know that this figure is even higher for children that are facing adversity. We also know that there's this kind of potential of generational transmission. So when we're thinking about the kind of well-evidenced impact of ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences, and the evidence shows that when there's no positive intervention to kind of improve attachment style, there's a really strong possibility that the same style will be passed on to the next generation. But it is kind of, on the flip side, it's really important to emphasize that kind of poor infant mental health, the problems with attachment and relationships, it's not inevitable, and there's loads of opportunities to kind of ameliorate these effects. And I think the EMBO is kind of the perfect fit for that, really. And then I thought a way to kind of capture the power of an EMBO for supporting maternity care for vulnerable families was to present 2 kind of short case studies. I hope that's okay. So these aren't real families, they're kind of based on my experiences of offering EMBOs to a really wide range of families over the past year. So Jenny and Kai and their baby Leo. So Leo is 2 days old and they are on the postnatal ward. Jenny and Kai are a young couple, and Jenny has a history of mental health illness. And ward staff and patients have heard quite loud verbal arguments during their stay. When asked how things were and what she could tell me about Leo, Jenny reported Leo was clingy and that he wouldn't be put down. Jenny appeared anxious about this and its potential impact on when they returned home. Throughout the EMBO, Leo was unsettled and he cried quite a lot and took significant efforts to soothe. He reached his stimulation threshold easily and he was really active. As we discussed what Leo's behaviour was communicating to us, we were kind of able to focus the conversation on what support Leo may need. And what an amazing thing that as his parents, Jenny and Kai, were already tuning into that and offering him the support that he required. We talked at length about Leo's individuality and what an amazing opportunity Jenny and Kai have as his parents to teach Leo from the outset that they will listen to his needs, respond to them sensitively, and teach him that the world is a kind and safe place to be, and all the kind of lifelong benefits of that Leo will benefit from. By the end of the embo, Jenny reported feeling much less anxious about Leo's behaviour and feeling more confident as a parent. Discussions with Kai explored his expectations of parenting a newborn, particularly around this kind of concept of self-soothing and potentially spoiling babies. And Kai engaged really well in the embo. And later that morning, I actually heard him on the phone to a family member telling him all about the embo. So that was really nice. And then moving on. So this case study is about Natalie and her baby Ella. So Ella is 5 days old, and Natalie had 3 other children who are no longer in her care. She has a history of substance misuse and is experiencing social isolation and has moderate mental health illness, primarily just depression and anxiety, and she is a lone parent as well. So as you can imagine, Natalie had a long history of involvement with children's social care, but had engaged well throughout her pregnancy with support services and children's social care. And the plan was for her to return home with her baby with a significant support package in place. Natalie told me that Ella was quite grouchy when awake, but spent most of her time asleep. I should have added that Natalie and Ella are there on the transitional care ward as well. Ward staff informed me that Ella was quite slow to feed and she was scoring on the neonatal abstinence syndrome observations. So Ella habituated easily to sound, although had a bit more difficulty with light. She appeared moderately stressed with a relatively low stimulation threshold, but she did soothe easily. And then she had some kind of self-soothing techniques with kind of hand-to-mouth behaviours. She cried only occasionally, but did sort of transition quite quickly between states. So we had a really lengthy discussion about the impact of neonatal abstinence syndrome and low birth weight on the nervous system of Ella. And once Natalie had a greater depth of understanding of why Ella behaved the way she did, Natalie was able to recognise that she had the ability to support Ella with some of these challenges and areas of need, which seemed really empowering. This seemed to really reassure Natalie and to encourage her to spend more time sensitively handling Ella, including more time in skin to skin and offering her short opportunities for reciprocal social interaction, but without kind of reaching her stimulation threshold. Before the embo, Natalie told me she mostly just left Ella in the cot as she didn't want to disturb her. But the embo explored, the embo sort of helped to explore and contextualise those sort of environmental demands that Ella was facing. The embo also opened up the opportunity for kind of lengthy discussions about how relationships do tolerate mistakes, and actually they kind of offer these avenues for repair, and that sort of cycle of rupture and repair being a really key element of building resilience. Babies don't need perfection, and I think that was really reassuring to Natalie, and she told me that she really enjoyed the embo. So as I mentioned earlier, I have carried out a small quality improvement project here at North Bristol Trust, where kind of when I was working, offering embos to vulnerable families during their inpatient stay on postnatal wards, and I kind of sought feedback from the families that accepted the offer of an embo, and the feedback was really positive, which was lovely. So as you can see there, nearly 90% of those offered did accept an embo, and everyone that gave me feedback said that they would recommend an embo to friends or family. And then this slide just shows a bit more detail of the feedback that I received, and it kind of reflects lots of the research about, embos and their impact. So supporting parents to kind of understand how to support their babies, increasing their confidence in understanding how their babies communicate, and help them to enjoy their baby. And then moving on, just thought that I would reflect on my experiences of offering embos on the postnatal wards, particularly for these kind of complex families. I think for me, the thing that I love so much about doing embos is that they kind of really force us to sort of slow down, and to really see and hear the babies that we are, see them and hear what they're trying to tell us. We do spend a lot of time kind of doing in midwifery, particularly to babies on postnatal wards. And our workload often forces us to work in a very task-orientated fashion with kind of tick lists, and lots of clinical assessments to perform. And the EMBO offers us the opportunity, kind of with parents, to slow down and connect and build a relationship. EMBOs lead to a really rich and in-depth conversation, and important topics such as safe sleeping, icon messaging, and kind of really core infant feeding principles can really kind of easily be woven in a way that's really meaningful. And I think that's kind of a theme that's been throughout today, isn't it? Kind of you sort of weaving these little bits of magic into your practice. And I think kind of working in this way, it has a much kind of deeper impact than sort of just rattling off a list of things to be discussed, for example, prior to discharge from a postnatal ward. We know that maternity services can face a lot of criticism, and some of that is sometimes around sort of that lack of personalisation and lack of family-centred care. But I think that an EMBO is kind of a really, it's an opportunity to offer a really kind of gold standard interaction. And we know that kind of inevitably, a lot of the families that are particularly vulnerable, they often are kind of clinically higher risk. So a lot of their care can be very clinical, particularly in the hospital setting. So kind of the strength-based approach of the EMBO really offers the opportunity to send messages to families that their baby is special, that their baby is unique, and that their baby is able to communicate and socialise with them in a really sophisticated way. It's kind of shift away from that sort of focusing on, how many minutes at the breast or how many millilitres taken or how many wet and dirty nappies. The EMBO really gives us an opportunity to slow down and step back and say, wow, isn't your baby amazing? And I found that this opportunity of offering this to vulnerable families, it's really, really valuable to parents, and it's often, a really positive little interaction on the wards when it's very kind of task orientated, people coming in and doing something, going out again. It's a really positive thing in their day. And then some of the challenges that I faced on the postnatal wards, I think one thing that is quite tricky is kind of how to sort of delicately articulate the offer of an EMBO, but whilst ensuring I'm getting kind of informed consent, kind of without alienating families. So kind of what I mean by that is explaining that the service is not universal, it's not offered to everybody, but making sure they understand kind of what an amazing opportunity it is and the potential impact it might have. And that's definitely something I've kind of got better with over time. And then another challenge that I thought of, which I've kind of yet to overcome, is trying to perform an EMBO with a translator. And I'd be really keen to hear of anyone's experience of doing an EMBO kind of with a translator. Personally, I have found that those kind of really in-depth conversations with translators, it can be really challenging. So kind of, I wonder if maybe an in-person interpreter might be better to kind of get that sort of subtlety and nuance across with that sort of non-verbal communication. But yeah, hopefully that's something that I will achieve soon. And then moving back to kind of EMBOs more generally, I think it's just really important to kind of highlight the value of involving both parents in EMBOs. And within maternity services, we know that kind of dads, partners, they're not technically our patients, but the kind of inclusion of fathers in perinatal care is really rising on the agenda. And for me personally, kind of some of the best interactions and verbal feedback has been from dads and partners on the wards. That's been really nice. And then kind of given the role that I'm in and a lot of the work that I do, I thought it was a good idea to kind of touch on the principle of the voice of the child in the context of kind of safeguarding. So I think that the Brazelton approach and EMBOs, they kind of really do align really coherently. So it's kind of bringing it all back to the baby and the baby's kind of ability to communicate and articulate, you know, what might life be like for this baby, and you know, what's the baby trying to tell us, what are the baby's support needs when those stimulation thresholds are met, and who is going to respond to them, how might their relationships and experiences influence them over time, and you know, who in the family is mentalizing the baby and tuning in and responding to their language and their needs. So I think kind of embedding the Brazelton approach into your practice can really help you kind of hone that skill of the voice of the child in a safeguarding context. And then finally, I think it was kind of on one of the training days for the EMBOs, one of the trainers kind of said something that really stuck with me, and that was kind of, once you've learned about the Brazelton approach, you can't ever go back. And I just, yeah, couldn't agree more, really. It's really positively transformed how I approach much of my kind of basic midwifery skills. A lot in infant feeding, kind of definitely, I'll be really looking forward to the next presentation to hear a bit more about that, but also some of the things that Paula and Natalie have talked about, like during NIPEs, antenatal education, kind of all postnatal care, really, kind of weaving little bits of Brazelton magic. Natalie called it glitter, I call it magic. Weaving those little things into your everyday practice has been really wonderful, and just, yeah, such a privilege to have kind of got to know more about it, really. Yeah, so that concludes my presentation. Thanks very much for listening. And yeah, I don't know if we've got any time for any questions or anything, but yeah, if we have, then I would welcome them.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It was a really amazing talk on how you can integrate, because often I think, as all you midwives and any professionals know, that you're so busy, how do you fit anything extra into your work? But Stephanie, I think you've described exactly how you can do that. And I was very impressed by your highlighting the preventative nature of the Brazelton, so trying to prevent problems in families rather than spending time trying to cure them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really important message. And I also liked when you said that not doing things to the baby. I mean, that is so important, and it's lovely to hear that your ethos and the Brazelton ethos of listening to the baby and seeing the baby as a person comes across. So thank you very much. There's one question here that perhaps you could answer. How do you link your approach in maternity to neonatal care and transitional care?
Yeah, so within, I'm not sure how it works in other trusts, but our transitional care ward is really kind of, yeah, it's very collaborative between kind of the neonatal services and maternity care. So a lot of the EMBOs that I do are on the transitional care wards, and we're really fortunate at North Bristol Trust to have occupational therapists working on our NICUs who are performing EMBOs. And quite a few of our nursery nurses have also done EMBO training. So it is becoming increasingly embedded in our care. We do kind of most of our training kind of moving forward. A lot of our training is with the neonatal services, so we do our kind of multidisciplinary training together with NICU nurses and things like that. Kind of, so we're definitely trying to kind of get this embedded, you know, across the services for women and children's.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. That's wonderful. And we now move on, thank you, to Angie Ellis's talk on how an understanding of baby behaviour transforms infant feeding support. And Angie has been involved in breastfeeding support within the NHS since 2003 and became a qualified lactation consultant in 2011. Over the years, Angie has worked in various teams, including health visiting and maternity as an infant feeding specialist. Angie serves as the community infant feeding coordinator in the London Borough of Camden, leading the implementation of the Baby Friendly initiative. In 2023, she trained as an ENBO practitioner, which she says has enriched the guidance she provides to parents. Angie has shared how this training has deepened her understanding of being responsive to babies and fostering a reciprocal relationship with them. So, Angie, welcome, and we're really looking forward to hearing your work within Camden.
Thank you. I'll just share my slides.
Thank you.
Let me know when you can see them. Let me just go. You can see that?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Right. That's the beginning. Okay. Fantastic. So it's a pleasure to be part of this webinar today, and to share how the newborn behavioural observation tool can support parents on their infant feeding journey. Throughout the presentation, I will talk. This relates to all babies. That's why it's the title is infant feeding. But I will be specifically mentioning bottle feeding and breastfeeding infants in some occasions. So in Camden, I'm from the community, coming from a community area, and we implemented, as the health visiting workforce and early years teams began their ENBO training in spring 21, and then we had an additional cohort in spring 2022. So over the past 2 years, the ENBO has become fully embedded into routine practice, with all health visitors now using the tool regularly. It took some time for it to become embedded and for all of the teams and the health visitors and earlies to become accredited, but it's now fully embedded, which has been fantastic. So we conduct regular audits to ensure its effectiveness, and we've appointed 2 health visiting ENBO champions among the team to support the continued growth and accreditation and to keep it going, and that's been really successful. So as we know, breastfeeding a newborn can be a complex and challenging experience for many parents. And we know that in the UK, research shows that 8 out of 10 mothers stopped breastfeeding before they were ready to or wanted to, which sort of emphasises the critical need for that early evidence-based support to ensure breastfeeding success. So as a baby-friendly accredited community service, Camden's approach to infant feeding has been enriched by the ENBO language and tools. I mean, some of the other speakers have mentioned that also. You know, these resources enhance the way we communicate with parents, and they also align with the baby-friendly standards. As an infant feeding coordinator, I've seen the immense value of ENBO training of health visitors and early years staff. So this tool has not only improved the quality of care, but also transformed the way information is shared with parents. And by using the ENBO, practitioners and parents alike view the baby as a unique individual with distinct behaviours and preferences, moving beyond, I think somebody else mentioned this, moving beyond that checklist-driven approach, and supporting parents to breastfeed in the early days, in conjunction with the ENBO, does go beyond teaching positioning and attachment, and checking, you know, how many wet and dirty nappies the baby's done. It's a lot more than that. It involves sort of observing and interpreting the baby's behaviours, helping parents understand why their baby may respond in a certain way. So the ENBO has expanded the scope of the breastfeeding assessments beyond simply monitoring milk transfer. It enables deeper conversations and tailored guidance, and has helped parents to build confidence and develop a greater understanding of their baby's behaviour. So skin to skin, which I believe Paula mentioned as well, you know, this is the starting point for all babies. whether they are breastfed or bottle fed. And as we know, looking at the quote there, infants who had skin-to-skin contact interacted more with their mothers, maintained their temperature and cried less, and they were also more likely to breastfeed for a longer duration. And as we all know, even from maternity through to community, skin-to-skin is always is something that you might want to go back to kind of like the reset button. It's a practice that it significantly benefits both newborn and the caregiver. So when it's integrated with the ENBO tool, it provides a comprehensive approach to assessing and supporting the infant's health, development and emotional well-being. By systematically incorporating observations of skin-to-skin interactions, the ENBO enables healthcare professionals to deliver that personalised care, address potential challenges early, and it fosters a nurturing environment that promotes the optimal growth and development of the newborn. It's also an opportunity to explain that babies are touch and smell individuals, and breastfed babies, as we know, are drawn by the scent of their mother and the nipple areola complex, which darkens during pregnancy to attract the baby to the breast. It also gives the practitioners an insight into how the infant manages being undressed and their response to tactile stimulation. An infant's activity level can be observed at this time. It also demonstrates babies' behaviour, such as their motor skills, specifically the crawling response. So pointing out to parents how a baby's instinctive reflexes are displayed when they lay in a prone position, looking at the tone of the arms and legs, the head lift, and to show how the infant propels towards the breast using their innate biological instincts. When carrying an ENBO observation, this is also a useful time at this stage where you can discuss feeding cues. So you may have all seen, I'm sure you've all seen this picture before. We also have this in our red book. We've got some infant feeding page, and that's one of them in the red book. And feeding cues is it's something that we sometimes, I think, we sort of presume that parents know about early feeding cues. So early identification of hunger cues reduces stress for both parent and baby, and it fosters that positive feeding experience. And it's especially beneficial for a baby who's having difficulty with attaching to the breast, or a baby that's getting really fractious at the breast, where they maybe have been bottle feeding and they have a bit of a breast aversion. So practitioners can guide parents on how to initiate feeding at the right time, so improving the likelihood of successful breastfeeding or bottle feeding by giving parents this information. And I'm sure you've all found that if you ask parents in the antenatal period how will they know when to feed their baby, they will often reply with "when my baby cries," which, as we all know, is a late cue. So parents knowing the subtle signs when baby wants to feed is really important. Breastfeeding is a skill for mother and baby, and catching baby when they are exhibiting these early cues is helpful when learning how to position and attach baby at the breast. It also allows the practitioner to discuss and highlight different sleep and arousal states, prompting a discussion on safe sleep practices, as well as icon and the baby's reflexes and tone as described within the ENBO. And in relation to feeding, it enables the practitioner to point out those routine reflexes and how touching the cheek or oral area will elicit a response. And it also prompts the practitioner to discuss feeding readiness. So this slide is a kind of a continuation, I suppose, from skin to skin. It's a position you may all have heard of, biological nurturing. Baby can be dressed when you do this position. But what I have found is when the health visitors use this position, it gives them a good platform when they're doing an ENBO to talk about how baby manoeuvres themselves to the breast and their reflexes. So biological nurturing is a natural baby-led approach to breastfeeding, and it prioritises comfort and an alignment with the baby's reflexes. In this position, the baby is held in a semi-reclined position on the parent's chest, allowing gravity to assist in stabilising the baby's body. And this facilitates behaviour such as the rooting, bobbing, and attachment to the breast, but without rigid intervention. There aren't too many instructions with this position. And as I've said, the ENBO tool complements the biological nurturing approach by helping practitioners to interpret babies' behaviours and cues during feeding and then pointing them out to mum. And it's also a good way for mum and baby to communicate with each other because you get that direct eye contact. It focuses on the individuality of each newborn. So it identifies their strengths, preferences and needs. And both approaches emphasise understanding the baby as an active participant in the feeding and bonding process. So sort of leveraging their innate reflexes and cues. So when integrated into practice, the EMBO can help identify specific needs or challenges that may influence the success of biological nurturing. So for example, observing a baby's temperament or state regulation can inform how to position the baby during feeding. Identifying oral reflexes or sensitivities, such as a strong suck or an aversion, can shape guidance on how to optimise this position. So in summary, the biological nurturing position and the EMBO are complementary tools that promote responsive feeding and bonding, and held together, they provide a holistic framework for supporting parents and babies, focusing on individuality, instinct and connection during breastfeeding. I think throughout the theme of today, we've spoken about and we use the term responsiveness, which is great. It's a key relationship building approach that helps parents and babies, and for all babies, recognise and understand babies' unique behaviours, their cues and their developmental needs. It strengthens that parent-infant bond, and it fosters that reciprocal relationship that develops and supports both emotional and physical development. When I first started working in the NHS, and I'm sure most of you will know this, the term feeding on demand was often used to explain how frequently a baby should be fed. And looking back, the word demand can carry a negative connotation, suggesting that a baby's natural feeding patterns are burdensome or overly demanding. So this phrasing may unintentionally create a less helpful perception of how babies feed and the feeding process as a natural process. Babies do not demand; they communicate what their needs are through cues, and that's, I think, really important for parents to understand. So today, luckily, thankfully, we use the term responsiveness to emphasise positively responding to a baby's needs, while also considering the parent's needs for comfort, connection, and love. And this approach encourages discussions about how milk supply is naturally regulated and highlights the benefits of holding and responding to a baby. Responsiveness supports healthy brain development, it reduces stress by lowering cortisol levels, and it promotes that emotional and physical well-being for both the baby and the parent. Responsive feeding goes beyond the concepts of demand or baby-led feeding. It is about building that sensitive, reciprocal relationship between the baby and parent. And as we know, hormones play a powerful role in nurturing behaviours, ensuring that babies are loved and cared for, and sort of building that milk production for a breastfeeding parent. The EMBO programme complements this approach by fostering responsive parenting, by helping parents to recognise and respond to their baby's cues, identifying signs of hunger or readiness to feed, understanding their baby's sleep-wake cycles, exploring strategies to calm and soothe their babies, and observing and interpreting natural reflexive behaviours. So when we look at responsive breastfeeding, I think this picture has already been used. I think it was Paula who used this fourth trimester poster, which I absolutely love. Breastfeeding goes beyond teaching optimal positioning and attachment. So it also involves helping parents understand, like I've said before, newborn behaviours and how to interact and respond to baby. And responsive breastfeeding involves a mother responding to her baby's cues as well as her own desire to feed. So it acknowledges that feeding is not solely about nutrition, but also about providing love, comfort, connection and reassurance. For example, a mother practicing responsive feeding may offer her breast when her baby shows hunger cues, is distressed or unsettled. It's also a valuable parenting tool for the mother. She may choose to breastfeed to meet her own needs, whether that's to relieve breast fullness, prepare her baby for sleep, or simply take a moment to sit, rest and enjoy a cuddle with her baby. And the fourth trimester helps parents to understand that babies are adjusting to life outside the womb and they may not realise they're separate from their mother. And so being close and held in the newborn period makes them feel safe and secure. So discussing feeding as a reciprocal relationship allows practitioners to explore with parents ways to soothe and console their baby, which also works alongside the EMBO tool. So when we're looking at supporting successful breastfeeding, all of our health visitors carry out the baby-friendly breastfeeding assessment tool at the new birth visit, which can also be incorporated into the EMBO observation very successfully. For breastfeeding mothers, this assessment evaluates the baby's ability to attach to the breast, transfer milk effectively, and suck and swallow efficiently. So when issues such as poor attachment or insufficient milk intake are identified, practitioners can use these findings to guide mothers on optimal positioning, attachment techniques, and strategies to stimulate milk production. So early intervention like these help prevent complications such as nipple pain, engorgement, and insufficient weight gain in the baby. The EMBO enables the early detection of feeding-related issues such as tongue tie, cleft palate, or other anatomical concerns that may hinder effective feeding. If the infant has a weak or immature suck and it has been identified that baby is not transferring milk well, additional support from an infant feeding specialist may be required. And that can be identified early on. So by addressing these concerns promptly, healthcare providers can refer parents to specialists. The EMBO prompts health visitors to have discussions with parents about the letdown reflex as well, and how physical closeness between mother and baby can trigger this response. Other areas observed during this assessment is baby's temperament in terms of crying, soothability, state regulation, and stimulation threshold. So supporting parents to explore ways to soothe, such as rocking, tucking, talking, singing. This can help parents to understand why their baby is exhibiting certain behaviours. Contrastly, premature babies often exhibit differences in state regulation compared to full-term infants. So they may have had prolonged ventilation or nasogastric tube feedings, and this can lead to feeding-associated pain and triggers oral sensitivity, with some babies displaying oral defensive behaviour. Additionally, parents of premature babies are often accustomed to a highly structured feeding approach in the neonatal unit, where volumes ingested and weight gain are closely monitored. So transitioning to a home environment in the community can be overwhelming, as the reality of feeding becomes less regimented. So it's important to acknowledge that babies with high clinical needs may cry more frequently, have an immature suck, and take longer to establish breastfeeding. And parents of these infants need tailored support and reassurance as they adapt to feeding at home. So emphasising patience and gradual progress in developing their baby's feeding skills. And also to mention responsive bottle feeding, which is great. I mean, we talk about this at the new birth with parents who are either mixed feeding or fully bottle feeding. It mirrors the principles of breastfeeding. So by focusing on feeding as more than just a means of nourishment. So when practitioners use the EMBO tool, they help parents to understand that bottle feeding is also an opportunity to bond with baby by holding the baby close and maintaining eye contact for connection and emotional well-being. And having an awareness that it is beneficial to the baby and mum and caregivers, to limit the amount of people who bottle feed their baby in the early newborn period, so they can form that attachment with their main caregivers. So parents who are bottle feeding are also given information on how to recognise and respond to their baby's cues in the same way they would if they were talking to a mum who was breastfeeding her baby. We encourage parents to trust their instincts and be flexible. So adapting feeding to their baby's unique preferences rather than feeding on a strict schedule and varying the amount of milk that baby is having and they will consume, and letting them know that they don't have to finish everything in the bottle. So really going with their cues, and this will builds a parent's confidence in understanding the baby's behaviours and rhythms, which can help to reduce parental anxiety around feeding. And responsive bottle feeding helps to identify and address challenges related to bottle feeding, such as baby might be struggling with teat flow, positioning or swallowing, adjusting feeding techniques to better suit the baby's temperament or feeding style. So we encourage paced bottle feeding in an upright or semi-reclined position to support the baby's comfort and reduce issues like wind or reflux. So it's important to let the baby guide the feeding, so pacing it, offering breaks as needed, and recognising when they indicate that they are full. And finally, just to summarise, as you can see here, I felt, for the practitioner, it ultimately facilitates deeper, more meaningful conversations between practitioners and parents, shifting towards a more personalised and holistic approach that goes beyond a purely clinical or technique-focused model. So this empowers parents with the confidence and understanding to navigate the complexities of early infant feeding. Since the implementation of the EMBO in Camden, I have observed significant enhancements in the practice of health visitors and early years practitioners. More importantly, it has given parents a fresh perspective, enabling them to see their baby as a unique individual with their own personalities, behaviours and needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. That was a beautiful description. Thank you of how you're encouraging breastfeeding and indeed supporting during bottle feeding too, and how closely mirrored are the ENBO. It's the ENBO's language and your language as breastfeeding consultants. So
yeah, it really does overlap.
Two can overlap, and that you can use both. I also love the term responsive breastfeeding rather than breast on demand.
Yeah.
You can use that, of course, with bottle feeding too, responsive bottle feeding.
Absolutely, yeah.
Same cues. And I think that's very encouraging, especially with mothers who perhaps are really finding it difficult to breastfeed.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That was really interesting.
You're welcome.
For how well you've integrated the ENBO into all your work in Camden. So thank you very much. So maybe we could bring up all our speakers so that we can see all of us, if any who are left online anyway. And just to thank you all for your contributions, which have, shall I say, woven so brilliantly together. And I think that's the word that has come through your presentations, the words weave and layer, and how you use the Brazelton, having done the ENBO and trained to use the ENBO, how you've all managed to weave it in to your various different roles in perinatal mental health, perinatal health, sorry, the perinatal stage. And also I'm most impressed how you've all brought in pregnancy, because that is what we at the Brazelton Centre UK really wanted to happen. But of course, you as midwives are the people who see the mothers antenatally. And it's brilliant that you've managed to bring that in, to bring the ENBO into that part of your practice. And that to recognise and be able to share with parents that every baby is unique. That too is really, really important. And I loved, I forget now who said what, I'm sorry, but maybe it was Paula, I can't remember, talking to your baby during the birth process. I have a feeling I did not do that when I was giving birth to my children. But I think that is a wonderful concept that actually, and it will possibly help mothers to think away from what's happening to them to what's happening to the baby. So again, I've learned so much today. And as being involved with the Brazelton for a long time, but I learn something new every time I hear somebody talk about how they use it. So thank you for reminding us that the baby is coming into a new world. At least we're not coming into, well, maybe we're coming into a new world as a mother or parent, but certainly the baby is definitely coming into a new world. So again, many, many thanks for enormously grateful for your brilliant presentations. Thank you. So now I think we can first of all have a look. I think I saw our 3 winners of the ENBO bespoke sessions. They are Aberdeen Maternity Unit, the Homerton Maternity Unit in Hackney, London, and the East Lancashire Maternity Unit. That was where I was brought up, so I'm glad that the Lancashire Maternity Unit has been selected. And Sarah says we'll be in touch to arrange the session for these units. So congratulations and thank you for entering the competition. Right. Now, sorry, I'd like to also remind you that we have already 2 webinars on our YouTube site, and you can access those and this one on that site. And our next Inform and Inspire webinar will be in March. So keep looking at the Brazelton UK website, and it will be announced as to the topic that we choose and the date on which it will happen. But thank you to all those who have attended today, and I think and to all those obviously who have presented. It's been a wonderful session, and I hope around the world, even where your maternity units may be different, you may be working with mothers in their homes and not in maternity units, but I hope that this has been useful to you in your work.